Hey guys. So today I had a fun little game of PUBG where a lot of weird things happened, and I thought I would try a full game video with commentary. Everything you're seeing here happened in this one game, from launching a bunch of mortars, giving in to the temptation and taking a crossbow, flying gliders and crash landing on a rooftop, flashbanging an enemy, using a mountain bike, grabbing a drop crate and an MG3. I was actually really looking for a tactical pack and finally found one. I ended up airbursting a grenade on an enemy. I had my first really effective use of a deployable barricade. That was kind of cool. And it even ended with a surprise. This is a new format for me, so please tell me what you think in the comments and if you would like to see more. With that said, let's get this game started. This game started with a fairly low plane path. I wanted to just jump right away and land near Mylta Power, not directly inside, but outside a little compound. I decided to land at this little compound outside of Mylta Power to get some quick loot, maybe push into Mylta Power, see what happens, go for a glider. As I was dropping down, I did spot a glider on the right side. It's kind of hard to see, so I zoomed in a little bit here on the video. But there was a glider at that southeast corner of Milton Power. Landed at this little compound. There's not too much here, but it should be enough to get started. Looked like we had a standard kind of like 5 people at small power, 5 more big power, a couple spread around. I left this little compound with moderate gear. I mean, I had a double-barreled shotgun, an SKS, and at least level 1 gear. You deal with what you got. I have enough to fight with, so that's what matters. Decided to push up into Mylta Power and see what happens. This player here was in the closed warehouse and actually managed to hear me on my approach. They got a couple hits, but then they made a bit of a mistake. They didn't push right away. They gave me time to heal up here. I got the first aid off, and I got to swap to a DBS. A DBS has a long reload, so they actually gave me the entire time to reload that thing. This player heard me and managed to get the jump on me, got a couple hits, but they didn't push their advantage. That was a fatal mistake. I even ended up having time full boosting before I engaged. Once it was time to fight, the DBS did quick work. They took a whole DBS right to the face, and ain't nobody got time for that. Oof. Yeah, that's rough. Another player nearby heard this and was approaching. I ended up hearing their footsteps outside. Okay, we got something going on here. I was thinking about using utility, but I'm like, eh. They seemed to stop outside, which confused me a little bit, but I took a peek, and they were right there. It's not a great range for a DBS, but you can definitely still kill somebody. Then, lo and behold, the plane flies by and drops a little present right nearby. As I'm running, I spotted a nice little death crate. Nothing really on it, so let's continue and see if we can get this. I do love this terrain around here. We don't get many fights in here because there's no loot. These destroyed nuclear silos are just really interesting geometry. Got up to the crate. Everything seemed quiet. And managed to get an MG3. Lovely. Then a friend decided to show up. They didn't seem to know where the crate was very well. They drove right past it as they were looking around. They seemed to think it might be in the water or something, hopping out, looking around. I started creeping up with them. I was ready to ambush if they were actually to find the crate, but they seemed to drive away. An MG3 staring right at a crate would have been great fun though. After all that, we head back into the main Mylta Power building. Still need some loot, and I still needed gas for that glider. Right off the bat, I end up finding a mortar. I just decide I'll carry it. It's heavy as hell, but I want it. Keep continuing through Mylta Power a little bit, and we hear a glider passing by. That's interesting. Usually I would take those guys right away and try to do some air-to-air combat, but I didn't even have gas yet. At this point, I'm really looking for a tactical pack. Especially with this many mortars around, I would love to be able to carry them. Looks like our driver friend ended up approaching from the west. He came at a pretty bad angle though, and my MG was set up. Yeah, that makes real quick work of him. The 990 firing speed will make quick work of anybody in that scenario. I've now found even more mortars here. I just decided, what the hell, I'll just set up this mortar in case it becomes useful. Meanwhile, I didn't realize that a quiet glider had actually landed into the east. That'll come in later. As I'm looting away, I end up hearing that player as he approaches. I can tell that they're in the next room. As I'm approaching, I notice that they're peeking the doorway very carefully. Flashbang time. The flashbang ends up being a perfect hit. It wasn't super close, but it was close enough to be effective. And I go on the chase with an MG3 on full 990. Little jump move, and it's over. Once again, more mortars, so you know what? I'm going to set up a second mortar. The circle does seem to be closing around Mylta Power. So having multiple mortars set up means I'll be able to shoot off mortars almost in any scenario. Then as I keep looting, what do I see but of course the lovely crossbow. I mean, how could I possibly keep a car 9 over a crossbow? Come on. What do we think this is? Then we're going, and oh my god, more mortars. Are you kidding me? Okay, well I guess we'll just set up a third mortar. Why not? Because what else are we going to do? I'm still desperate for a tactical pack. I would love to be able to carry all these mortars on the run, but I can only carry so much with that one. Then a little thing caught my eye. It was just a little bit of color, and I was like, what? Oh, there's a glider there. That's not a spawn. It kind of clicked in my mind that the guy that I ambushed to the east probably ended up coming from that. I'll keep that in mind for later. As I'm looting around, I finally find a tactical pack, and of course it's right next to another one. I throw the crossbow and mortars in there, and my inventory is wide open again for meds and utility. I can carry this, and that, and more. I like putting a lot of utility in tac packs. There's some really fun playstyles you can try. I move back up to the front to grab these mortars. I set up a bike because I know that I'm dealing with blue here and I need to move fast. As we're going down here, grab these mortar shells. And then as we take off, we're actually heading the opposite way from circle because we're going to take that glider. As I guess is already fueled. I do some boosting in the air, and then do a long, nice coast. Center of circle is this compound. Because this compound's fairly centered, I assume is taken, so I'm going to do an interesting insertion, we can say. This is landing on the roof to be able to go into the second floor. This confuses a lot of people. It wasn't as smooth as I wanted, but it worked. Though it turned out that this compound was empty. So, time to set up another mortar, because we're actually getting into endgame now. The shells are on the ground, so my tactical pack is now available to take a huge amount of things. At the window I spot a drop. You know what? Maybe I should get the mortar ready. I set up the mark and then calculate the distance. Because I could barely see the crate, I decided to just shoot a mortar, see what happened. I didn't calculate it too well. That's what happens when you can barely see it. Over to the north, I heard shots somewhere. I took a guess of where they were on this ridge, but I was off. You can see that if he was on that ridge, it would have been a pretty good shot. I headed inside to get some height. And from this window, I actually managed to spot him. Now, I don't have a sniper, but at least I can set up a mark and do a proper mortaring. Now, here's a much better shot. The only shame is that the player actually moved, but it would have been right where they were. We're now getting into a really small circle, and I've got a big field to cross. I made a decision to take back the tactical pack and to take this deployable barricade. It's a pretty big field I had to run through. On the approach, I do spot someone running from the left. That could be a big problem. But luckily no one notices me. I'm mainly worried about my right, but then shots spring out right as I get close. I've got a pretty good idea of where they are, but I can't see them very well. I saw a little sliver for a moment, but I wasn't sure if they fell back or not. So let's go for an airburst. Let's see how this works. The nade ended up being a perfect cook. What can I say? There's nothing someone can do about that. With that player dead, I turn back to the east. And I immediately notice someone looking at me. I go for cover, but I realize there's not much around. But I did find this little divot, and that'll do for now. It actually is amazing cover. It's almost invisible. This player seemed to notice me, but I think they were more worried about someone to the right. Now's the time to drop the tactical pack, grab everything from inside, the deployable barricade, smokes, all that kind of stuff, and get the crossbow ready. I try to throw smoke between me and that sniper, and then boost up, and here we go for the end game. It looks like the smoke covered pretty well. I move up and decide this is the perfect time to deploy the barricade. I spot the sniper, but miss the crossbow. Blah. Ah well, let's go for the nade. This would have been a pretty good nade as well, but they end up smartly moving. They ended up engaging with the third player and taking them out. It's now 1-on-1. They took some damage in the other fight, and then they used their first aid kit only to immediately take a bolt in the chest. That's a lot of damage. They threw out a couple smokes, good, and then they threw a frag by accident. And realized their mistake and ran. I'm currently not even using my barricade. I'm actually using a bush to block line of sight. I'm just taking a couple of pot shots based on where they were before. I think I saw them in the grass, so let's go for a nade. Now they're shooting. I use this opportunity to stand up and go for a clean headshot. And that's it. GG's. You can see that they actually were still looking at the barricade. So yeah, that was quite a weird game. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.